Welcome back to the Let's Go podcast. Here with Hunter and Juan, and we just want to help you grow as a disciple of Jesus as you engage in the text. And we just sort of hashed through kind of this last week's text. So let's look now. We're in the Sermon on the Mount second week, and wonderful text about salt and light.
I have a question before we start.
Sure.
At any point when we were preaching this, Juan, did you think, I wish we had lumped this in with the Beatitudes, like did the whole thing? I think we talked about that a little bit last week.
I did,
Okay.
because I even included the beginning of my sermon at the end with verses 11 and 12 of chapter 5.
The switch to blessed
I
are
started
you.
there, and then I went into salt and
I
light.
should have done that. I thought about doing that. That was such a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
You did so good.
Yeah. We're just so proud of you, dude.
Yeah.
So, great little couple verses here with some imagery of salt and light. And you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world, which is a good transition out of the Beatitudes. And it's almost as if Jesus preached the best sermon ever preached.
Pretty good sermon.
Pretty good. So one, Hunter looked at that and sort of asked, like, why do we use these words, earth, salt of the earth, light of the world? Had some interesting takeaways on that. But really surrounding just this whole idea of, Jesus doesn't want us to become something that is not useful. Whether it be salt that's lost its saltiness or a light under a bowl. So we're always interested in sort of the approach you took on that.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, so there's this idea that I see, and this is the reason I started with 11 and 12, is because he's telling them to rejoice and be glad in the middle of insult, in the middle of persecution, in the middle of all that. What he's telling us, he's telling the people that were listening, he's telling them, you need to be radically different. You need to stand out completely from this world. And I focused a lot on the properties of salt, the properties of light, and what they do and what's their worth, and like how can we reflect those same properties, like in the properties of my life, right? Am I thinking about salt? Am I having an idea to be able to preserve the Word of God in my life, to preserve those values that are from the Lord, that preserve the truth that is from Him? Like, am I doing that? Like, am I giving flavor, to what God is doing through me, right, in my ministry and in my family? And am I pointing people to Jesus as the light is shown, right? It exposes, it shows the way, it shows what's in front of you, and we need to be able to live lives that have those properties, to say, yes, my life does that. And then be able to say, I've lived my life pointing people to Jesus, being the salt, being the light, and having that quality in my life where I can look back and say, yeah, I did that. So that was kind of my focus to that.
Hunter, you said in yours, and I don't even know if I wrote it down. I was just like, that's a really good. Oh, yeah, I did. Do we live a life that from all angles people can see the light of Christ in us? I thought that was a really good way in like tying into what Juan was saying is at the end of the day, do people see Jesus in you from every angle of your life or just from one?
And so Juan, I had never really thought too much before last week about the the lamp hidden under a basket. We get it, like the imagery is really easy. It's the a city on a hill cannot be hidden, and just thinking about the function of a city being able to be seen on a hill from a long way off. And really, if you're traveling in the wilderness or in the night and you're looking for that city, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to find, there's something over there. There's hope. And but if you can only see the front side of a city and not the back, but you're coming from the south and you can't see it. And so what does it mean to be a city that's on such a hill, a person that in a church that's in such a state of being seen by the world, that from all angles you can be seen, which means like you can see my faith in my at my kids' ball games, you can see them in my marriage, you can see them in how I work, and just from all angles. but so many of us, and just this is the reality, not shaming anybody, but the reality is that so many of us have Christian spaces and not Christian spaces. And we are hidden in some parts of our life. And that's, I don't believe the intent of Jesus for us to be fully formed, to be able, like you say, to look back and say, I've been used, I've been useful.
And Jesus will even say further on, and you mentioned the comparison of, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds, and then how Jesus is going to come back and he's going to say, well, don't pray on the streets and do all this other stuff. But to what you're saying, it made me think is Jesus later in the Sermon on the Mount is going to be really clear about how you should pray. And so it's in those moments of private, are you the same person that you are in the face of public?
Because that's the thought I was having, is just like that person that wants to be seen, but for the wrong reasons. It's like, thank you for not making me, like this person, and they'll stand up and try to show off, right, their spirituality. It's not that idea, it's that idea that as I see this city, I'm seeing hope. I'm seeing I'm seeing freedom. I'm seeing even. Like I think of like Jerusalem, I think of the city during that time, that it had a wall, it was up, it was built on purpose on a hill for defensive reasons. Like if I go there, I'm going to be safe. Right. And that's the idea Jesus is saying is it's like, be on a hill, let people see you and have that same feeling of hope and safety and that it's going to be okay. So, yeah.
And, and so in Matthew 6, 5, when he's teaching, before he teaches on prayer, he says, and when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray, standing in the synagogues and on the street corners, to be seen by men, which is, so kind of talking about the intent of the heart. And he says, hey, let your light shine so that people may see your good deeds. But he will say later, hey, don't do such things to be seen by men. And the difference is so that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven.
Because there's a relationship there,
right? As opposed to hey, glorify you because you're so holy, and we have this tendency in us. I think we all do, to want to be recognized for the things that we do, and the intent of the heart with the way in which you're doing things, so that they might be seen. And
the intent of what we do, as Jesus points out here, is for God's glory. Yeah. Is for God's glory, that they may see your good deeds and say great things about you. That's not what Jesus says. Right. They may see your good deeds and think high of you. That's not what Jesus says. He says that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. I'll insert sort of, and this is true from probably all pastors, anyone that has to step in front of people and teach or is called to that. But, as a worship pastor, as a musician, there's a lot of that personal glorification tied to art and to music. And I've learned the hard way many times. We don't always do things as we should, but as over my years as a worship pastor, I've learned that the times, at least from my perspective, the times that I am in the quiet place with God and intimate with the Father on my own, in the dark closet, in the inner place, when I'm healthiest in the inner place is when my leadership on the outer place is able to thrive much better than if I'm just putting on. Sometimes we're worn out and, we get up there and we've got to go through the motions. And I just pray that I've prayed for years. It's like, God, may that never be true of me, even though I'm not perfect. And even though life gets busy, like, taking seriously the calling we have as pastors to understand that we're seen much in that light, but it's all for ultimately the glory of God, right? It's not for our glory. And so I think there's also a tendency to overtake and overstep what he's saying here. And I've just learned when people come to me and say, hey, great job, I really enjoyed the music, to just say, thank you. Yeah. Right? It's like some people will take that opportunity to go, well, it's all for the glory of God, which,
Or-
I mean, I understand the sentiment, and I'm not
Yeah,
getting on to people,
yeah.
but I do think that it's important that we recognize that it's for God's glory, while at times the best thing to do in that situation is to say thank you.
Or to the false humility thing where you're like, well, did you notice that the guitar was
Yeah.
wrong here, and that I left this part of my song, it really wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. And the same is true as individuals, but also is true about the church. And I have this deep desire for First Baptist in Athens to be known and seen in the community. I want them to see our signs and see our name on things, and to see our people out and about wearing T-shirts that say, FBC Athens and all this stuff, but not so that they could say, "Man, they got some good pastors over there," or "Man, but so they could say, "Wow, God is moving in that place and through those people," and that's the heart that I have for our church, is that we would be a city set on a hill, so that people, hey, I want to be seen. It's the same reason that I'm not banging down doors saying, "Man, we should go build a new building outside of town and do all this stuff." It's like, no, we are right now. The Lord has called us to be in the heart of this city, and so we should be seen in the heart of the city. So, one thing that just came to my mind, Juan, is what would you say? Somebody came. So I had a few people yesterday say, "I've lost my saltiness. I've been a light under a basket."
Okay.
And I have been, so I, ipso facto, have been disobeying Jesus' expectations for my life is kind of one of the things that I said. Like, what do you say to that person? How do you encourage them and redirect them? And
Yeah, and I love that word that you just used, the redirection, right? Because once we've strayed away from that saltiness, because he does mention if you lose the saltiness, throw it out, let it be trampled. I mean, what he's saying, that he wants us to understand this is serious, right? I have to do something that if I've lost the saltiness, right? If I'm not pointing people towards Jesus, like, where are my priorities, and where is what is my testimony saying?
yeah,
And just encourage folks to ask themselves those questions and say, what can I do to let those people, because he says in verse right there, verse at the end of verse 15, and it gives the light to everyone in the house. So think about who's in your house.
yeah.
What light am I showing those people? And that's where you need to start.
And I think that was one of the challenges that I gave at the end of the 11 o'clock service yesterday was, man, if you're in this place, you need to pray, ask, "Lord, would you give me vision in my life for who are the people that you've entrusted to me?" Obviously my immediate family, my extended family, but who else? Who is it at work? And believing that the Lord will show you the direction in which you need to shine for all those around you, and kind of trusting that, man, I have a responsibility. I've been called to my family, to my neighbors, to my work, but also, leaving the room for the Spirit to, hey, I've also been called to be the light when I'm out at the grocery store, or I'm getting food or whatever. And but that was the tricky question for some.
Yeah.
For me last night to answer for a few folks, to help them kind of process.
Yeah.
Because you can get in this pit of, I've been out of the game, and I don't know, how do I get back in it?
I think the important thing to remind folks, if they feel like they're in a place of, "I've lost my saltiness," is to say, well, no, you haven't, actually. You haven't lost your saltiness, because Jesus says you are the salt of the earth. And if you feel that you just haven't represented that, I mean, the reality is that you can regain your saltiness in a sense, like salt can't, but we are the salt of the earth. And that the redirection, I think we can all look in areas of our life and say, yeah, I missed it. Lord, I missed. It's that we've talked about sins of omission. It's just come to God and say, Lord, I've missed this, and I'm sorry, and I want to be salt. I want to be light, and allow Him to work on you through that. And there's this tendency, and this is a tool of the evil one, is to convince you that, I think, that you're not salty, that you don't have, Jesus is telling us we are the salt of the earth, and don't allow your shame or your guilt to convince you otherwise.
Right.
And that can just be a small step of faith. It's just to be honest with God and then allow Him, be patient enough to allow Him to work in your life and to reveal situations and people where you can shine the light of Jesus, where you can bring flavor, the flavor of the kingdom. I mean, we started your sermon talking about your steakhouse experience, which I do want to finish the podcast on because I think there were some fun takeaways from that. I had some questions. But this thing is we crave salt, right? Like
I went to it. Long story short, I went
Yeah.
to a steakhouse, didn't have any salt in the thing, and so everything I ate, I just thought,
and he
like,
asked,
for the love of God, can we have salt? And I asked them for salt, and they're like, we don't do that here. And I was like, what do you mean you don't do that here? Sorry, so keep.
So the fact that like salt comes from the earth and then we crave salt is this interesting thing. It's like the world like needs this. Like we all need it. We get dehydrated. Part of what they put into Gatorade at a football game, if you ever tasted it, and I have because I've been on the sidelines at TVCC, is the Gatorade for the football players in the intense heat is saltier than just the Gatorade you buy at the store. And that's because it helps us to rehydrate. So there's lots of, you said, properties of salt. It's crazy how many things there are. And so part of all of this conversation, I think, is just, and you summed it up well, Hunter, when you said, what did you say about grace?
Grace sends you forward,
Grace meets you where you are, but doesn't
leave you where you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Grace meets you where you are, but it doesn't leave you where you are. And so to that person that comes, or maybe if you're watching and you're like, man, yeah, I feel like I need to be more of a light. Recognize that God's grace meets you where you are in that moment, but it's not going to leave you there. So that was good.
It propels you forward. And so for me, the imagery one that I kind of ended on, I tried to start off like pushing more into salt and, use the steakhouse illustration. And then I ended with this imagery that like light is always moving forward. Like light doesn't, like there's no scenario in which darkness pushes back light. Like light's job is to advance and to go forward. And Jesus at the end of Matthew's gospel says, go make disciples. Like move and shine in all of to the ends of the earth. And so just really challenged by those imageries of light and salt, and didn't push as much into the properties as I think that, you could and many folks do. And it's just fascinating, all the uses of salt. And so that'd be one of my cutting room floor things is that, you like there's a reality that it's not just, hey, there's one thing that you do as a disciple, but there's different ways you can be the salt of the earth. And part of that's knowing your gifting. Like, what kind of salt are you? Like, what's your use? Where are you? What's needed of you? And so just, and I think that that's a grace of the Lord, too, that it's not, hey, all salt does this one thing. And you're like, man, I really stink at that one thing. It's like, hey, salt does this and this and this. Like, how are you being salt? Fascinating.
Yeah. And I did leave, my sermon with a challenge. I told a quick little story of when I was little, and my friend wanted to get on the monkey bars, couldn't reach them, right? We were too small. But I couldn't lift them, but I could get on the ground on my hands and knees, and he used me as a step to get up to the monkey bars. And
so good.
And people are something is just happening in their lives that, deep down they want to reach for Jesus. They want to reach out and grab him, but just something's going on that's not allowing them to do that. Like, what are we doing to help them along?
So good.
How can we pick them up and say, hey, I want to get you closer to Jesus. Like, what are my actions and behaviors doing to help that? So,
well, and sometimes you've got to get on your hands and knees and say, you literally can use me to get where you are. Like, that's such a, and like as a kid, you do it, but like as a human, that's a humble state to be in, to say, hey, I'll be that for you.
Yeah.
Well, and the important thing that you mentioned, one that I thought about as you were telling that story is, faith is meant to be lived in community.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we begin to ponder on all of the things of who God is and what he does and what he can do, and we start to think about we can't attain this knowledge just on our own. And not only the knowledge, but the work of faith, the creating of disciples, and the life of faith is done so much better in community. And that's how Jesus designed it. He grabbed 12 guys and he changed the world, you know? And so we need to not also believe the lie that just my faith is just this personal thing because if you do, I believe you're doomed to fail over and over again, because that's just, we're not perfect.
Right.
When I called Jesus into my life and he made me new and I stayed that and I never sinned again, that's not what the gospel teaches, right? But he does come in and he does make us new, but then we fall and we need community to help us through. And so if we're, if our life of faith just looks like, showing up to church on Sunday and then going and doing whatever we're doing, we're not showing the light of Christ from every angle of our life. But if we're living in and through that community and like be in a group, we talk about all these things, like it feels like as pastors we're always saying, like, find a group of community. Don't just be here on Sundays. But we encourage all of those things because we need each other to grow spiritually. And that's not to take away from your personal time with God in the morning. You should also have that, but we need each other to work through all of these things. And I think it makes the light shine brighter. Yeah. So it's a good text.
It's a good text.
Yeah.
Juan, do you have anything that didn't quite make it in?
No, I actually struggled with it because I had heard this sermon. You just hear it a lot.
So many times, yeah.
Growing up in the church, and I think that what I ended up with, I was pleased with how the Lord just kind of put on my heart what He felt needed to be said. So, but yeah, sometimes those are struggles. You're just like, what is it that the people need to hear at this moment, at this time, and just trusting in that God's direction. So yeah.
I think for me the only real thing, other than pushing into properties of salt, is the one thing that Juan mentioned a second ago is like the defensiveness of a city on a hill. And just I read one historian who was talking about how a lot of cities, when they would see people a long way off, like so I made the argument that like it's for the people to know, like, oh, I can go and there's safety and encouragement, and like I need, that's where I need to go to be out of the wilderness and into the place. But there were cities that, for when they saw somebody a long way off, they don't just wait for them to get to the door. They go out to them. And because, so part of being a city on a hill is so that you can see everybody that is in need around you, and that you go and you'll learn, oh, this person's a military threat, or, oh, this person's in need. And then that for me evokes the image of the prodigal son of the father that from a long way off saw his son.
Oh, yeah.
And he runs to him, and his son's like, oh, I've been working up all this. I need to share that. Oh, I'll be a servant, all this stuff, and he gives him the ring and all that stuff. And it's just, man, to be a people that are so light of the world that they say, man, there's a person in darkness out there. I'm going to take my light to them, and light their way in such a way that they're like, I didn't know that it was as dark as it is. Until you showed me this light. And then there's just a few illustrations that I tried to work in about when I lived in Dallas. It wasn't dark anywhere. Literally. I go out at 2 a.m. in my backyard, and there's light. Like light pollution is a real thing. You don't realize what true darkness is until you're in a place that doesn't have light the same way. And like me stepping outside on a cloudy night here in Athens in my backyard, and it can be dark, man. And just to know that there are parts of the world that are darker than others, and those parts need Jesus.
And sometimes you don't have to go very far to see that.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's good. I enjoy my dark backyard out in the country.
You see the stars,
but you can really see the stars. It's like just taking those moments to just thank God for His presence, even in the midst of the darkness. Like there's, I don't remember if I told this story on this podcast or not, but it doesn't matter. I'll tell it again. But I did a songwrite years and years ago with a gentleman, or with a bunch of folks from around town, and we were looking at the Psalms, and it was playing off of this darkness and light analogy, and we were trying to write this song just about that idea of like God being with us in the dark, that He is the light of the world, and that even though we feel overwhelmed by darkness, that He shows us the way. He shows us His light. And I'll never forget, this gentleman told this story about when his daughter was young, and she was afraid of the dark, like terrifyingly afraid of the dark. And he was trying to figure out how do I parent her well, like how do I show her. And one night, he said that the stars were just beautiful, and he was sitting out on the porch, and he walked in there to his daughter and grabbed her by the hand and said, "Hey, come with me." And he walked out with her into the dark and lifted her head and said, "Check out these stars." And so we wrote that into a chorus or a bridge, and you lead me out into the dark, lift my head, show me the stars. It's
So
like
good.
God just will remind us, like He's with us even in those dark times, and that He has light. And so there's honestly, there's a sermon in salt and there's a sermon in light, probably more than one, but it's just He's
Well,
with us in the
yeah.
dark too.
And I was thinking when you're sharing that story, I brought to mind. I grew up sharing a room for a number of my elementary years with I have a nephew that's 1 year younger than me, and he's blind. And just, and I don't know what he, what it's like to be blind, and how can he see like light and that kind of stuff, and just thinking of the lighting his world looks different than lighting somebody else's, and just the way in which obviously you can go to Jesus opens blind eyes, like eyes that see complete darkness to show them the way, but also just there's so much goodness here, and it felt like a stretch at some points for me too, because we've heard it a bunch. Also, it's because it's lesser verses, and we've been preaching in Abraham these long texts, right? And so it's refreshing and new, and excited. And next week we're preaching a really long text.
Yeah.
So
I'll with almost poetic elements in it, right?
Yeah, it's good.
So you're gonna see how that turns out.
I'll be preaching in the English services, and then our good friend, former pastor Kyle Henderson's preaching bilingual.
He is.
That's exciting.
So we invited him to come, and he's going to be sharing the word. So
that's so good.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's exciting. So we're looking forward to that. And I would just say, Hunter, if you're ever at a restaurant and they have unsalted food, one of the things that I thought about telling you was, as someone who made coffee for people all the time, right? I didn't get many bad drinks, but there were a couple times where we made something off or something, and I want to know, as the creator of this thing, that it is not good. And then I would remake a drink for someone for free, and that's my opinion. If you own a restaurant or it's like customer service,
that's not my
personality. If somebody sends it back, make them a new one. But we could talk about that part. But what I would say is, don't be afraid to be the guy.
I'm not going to be the guy.
I know you're not, but don't be afraid to be the guy to say, "Hey, this doesn't." I
have a different solution. I'm going to McDonald's. I'm going to take. This is me confessing to stealing. I'm going to take some more salt packets and put them in my wallet, and then I'll be the salt of the earth.
I have not heard of that trick. That's actually pretty smart.
That's stealing, and you shouldn't do it.
And I've heard people carry their own peppers because they want spicy food. Just carry your peppers.
You mean actual peppers, not
actual
like peppers.
Okay,
yeah.
I saw an
the Pekin, the small one.
Yeah, I saw an Instagram reel of a guy that went to a hibachi place, and he pulls out of his back pocket some tortillas and starts putting them up.
Shut up.
Yeah. All right, we're ending up in the mundane now, but thanks for logging in. We'll see you next week, and we look forward to the rest of this series of the Sermon on the Mountain.
You have to say the love.
Right. So we should say our motto: love God,
live like Jesus,
serve others.
Let's
Vamos.
go.